Alex, thank you for being here today.
Well, it's good to be here. Thanks.
I'm excited for you stopping by. I'm really excited for our audience to learn more about your story, because I think you've demonstrated phenomenal success in building companies, and what you're now doing with Kandidate as a platform to help technology companies scale their sales, operations, and marketing teams is really, really successful. So today our guest is Alex van Klaveren. He has built a number of businesses over his career and is the CEO and founder of Kandidate. It's been recognized that you've also had a kind of a well-regarded education or background. You've had experience building a number of different companies, also in the US and also in the UK. And I think that's given you a fantastic perspective in what is needed when thinking about building successful sales, operations, and marketing teams. Kandidate as a business has been going, 3.5 years now?
Yeah, just about, I think we're just crossing into 4 years now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you, in that time, has been able to help build out UK, US, and European teams from a sales, marketing, and operations perspective. And in that time, you've developed a really smart technology, which is helping hiring managers assess and identify talent to bring into their team. So I'm really excited today for our audience to learn more about the value that Kandidate provides for fast-growing technology companies. But really, what we really care about today is your story and the story behind you as a founder. So just to kind of break the ice and get things going, what's got you excited, Alex, today? Why are you excited to be here?
Yeah, I think excited to be here. I think mainly because of a few things that are kind of happening in our business at the moment. We've been going for 4 years. We've started off really with an idea, or a problem, which was every single startup has a challenge hiring. I don't think raising capital is the issue now for most founders. I think building a team, finding the right talent at the right place in that journey is the hardest thing they face. So that was the problem that we started with. We've been working for the last 4 years. I think we've pivoted 4 times in 4 years. And with the idea now that we have a platform that any SaaS company can use to basically find their commercial talent. I think recruitment is very challenging. I think finding the right fit of those people at the right time is very challenging. So there's a lot that we're working with, both on the candidate experience and on the client experience, which we're trying to get right. I don't think we're totally there yet, but I think we're getting really close. So I'm excited about what we're going to show the candidates and clients over the next 3 months.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad to hear it. So just to begin this, before we learn more about the value that Kandidate is adding in the market, we care about you as the founder behind this story. Just thinking about yourself and when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that you typically think about?
The first thing is I think, damn, I'm hungry. Genuinely. I seem to be unbelievably hungry in the morning.
Well, after an 8-hour fast, I'm not surprised.
Look, I mean, I think it's mostly, my thoughts are mostly dominated by work. I try and train myself not to have the first hour thinking about work, but it's very difficult. So I think pretty quickly, I'm just thinking about the day and the week and what we need to get done. I think kind of most founders innately, they are always in the back of their mind. There's something lurking there of what's the number one problem I have to fix that day. So I think you just get that with experience and concern about your business.
Yeah. Okay. So you're kind of eyes open, thinking straight away of what needs to be done in that business.
Yeah.
I've noticed the more I've learned about you is that you've been involved in building a number of companies over the years. Wow. And you're still very young. So you've done you've done a lot with your career. And I just wonder, where do you get the inspiration and motivation to keep going at it and keep going again at building these companies that you're involved in?
Well, I think it's 2 things. One is just, I think, fear of failure. I think that's what I think drives. And the other thing is, I think, like a lot of entrepreneurs, is you have a very clear idea of where the problem is and what you can solve. So I think that's what keeps driving you, is just to try and actually connect and solve that problem. The challenge is that I think it basically takes years before you can build a product or a service that actually is solving all of those things. So that's what keeps me going, is that I can see the answer very clearly. And in recruitment, there are lots of different challenges and lots of different issues there. But trying to get to a point, if I had 100 founders who all emailed me in a month and said, "You've just solved all our hiring needs," that would be for me. I'd say, okay, that's it.
Amazing.
But it's, we are getting closer, but we're not totally there.
I'm excited to learn more. I imagine in being involved in building so many businesses that it hasn't always been easy. And, can you reflect on some of those, or the times that maybe it's been a little bit difficult for you, and how have you kind of overcome those challenges in those experiences that you've had?
I think when a startup fails, that's incredibly challenging, because I think you have to take responsibility for that. So I think with one of the businesses that I was involved with in the States, it did fail, and that's difficult because you've got friends and family, and you have their money involved, and you have to explain that to yourself and also to them. So I think that's one of the hardest things. But I think you find a way to think, what did I do wrong, and how can I make sure that never happens again?
And then thinking about when you do it right. You've done some things that have consistently made you successful. When you reflect on those aspects of yourself, what do you feel are those strengths that have made you successful at building businesses?
Well, I think over the last 20 years, it's just realizing what you're good at and what you're not good at. So with Kandidate, I have a co-founder, Jason, and we are very, very different. So he looks after the product. He's based in Warsaw. He's based with our dev team. So I think I've realized over the years not to try and attempt things that you're not good at. I am not good at details. He's totally detail orientated. So with this particular founder team, I think I'm just trying to be really clear of stick to the things that I'm good at.
Fantastic. Now, being the founder of a platform that is helping hiring managers identify the right talent, I would hope that you're particularly good at identifying what is the right talent to join Kandidate. What are the attributes that you look for when you think about the type of people you're attracting to your own business to come and work with you and join the company? Yes,
I think it's important to try and differentiate there, because I think what we're looking for is often quite different to what our clients or the hiring managers are looking for. I think obviously it varies with exactly what they do, but broadly speaking, I think when I really try and not and look too far into their background or into their experience. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, is we look at someone's experience and we make a judgment. They've got 5 years of experience, they've been selling this, that means they're good at selling this. And I think that's one big mistake that people make. So for me, it's really understanding three main things. So firstly, what have they overcome? What challenge have they overcome in their life? And if they can't name one thing, one story where they've really overcome someone, I think it's going to be very challenging for them to work in our company. I think secondly, just really getting to know the person. So one of the things we always do is try and take the interview out of this setting. This is a bad way, I think, to assess someone, because what you're assessing really is how well I can ask questions and how well they can actually communicate back to me. That is a typical interview setting. So try and take the interview and just walk with them, spend time with them, have an unstructured setting. The third thing I think is most interviews tend to be unstructured in terms of the questions. We start asking questions and then we explore. Actually, I don't think that's a good way to assess people. I think having a structured set of questions in an unstructured environment, that is a better way to do it. Asking them for examples of what they've done in certain situations.
I love that advice. I think you're absolutely right. Taking people away from that interview setting in a more relaxed environment, you're going to learn more, they're going to feel more comfortable.
Yeah, mini golf.
And you're going to indeed learn a bit more about them. Can you just explain for the audience in terms of your value proposition for Candidate from a client hiring manager perspective, and also candidates that could also join your platform to help them develop their career?
Sure. I'll start with the candidates. So I think the problem still remains. When you're looking for a job, you speak to your network, you go to job boards. And I think job boards are still very common and are still a terrible experience. You apply for 5 or 10 jobs, you won't hear back from most of those companies. You might go into the candidate experience where you go into one interview and you don't get feedback. So I think from a candidate point of view, if you're trying to find your next role, it's still a pretty poor experience. The other thing is that you get spammed with loads of jobs that don't really have the criteria. What are you going to get paid? What's the training involved? So really, from a candidate point of view, they're not getting the information there they want. So what we're trying to offer on the platform is that when you sign up to Candidate, you will probably only get 3 or 4 approaches from us per year. But we hope we've matched that with exactly what you're looking for. What salary, what OTE, what type of team, what stage of startup. So that's on the candidate side. So that's what we're building on the platform to really try and tailor all of the opportunities to what the candidate's looking for. On the client side, I think the challenge is there are lots of platforms out there. LinkedIn, as you know, has 60 million profiles. The challenge is that you can approach 100 people, but only a small percentage will get back to you. Then you have to screen them and ask them fairly basic questions. So LinkedIn is a great tool, but I think it's a blunt tool. So what we're trying to create is a curated platform, and we didn't invent this. This was Hired.com. They started 9 years ago. And I think what they've successfully achieved for engineers is quite impressive. They're in 16 cities now. So I think, that's what we're trying to do is create a platform where we save time for the clients and hopefully we give great opportunities for the candidates.
Well, and I absolutely love it. I think you're absolutely right. Job boards are a wholly depressing experience.
Horrible.
They're completely unpersonalized. You learn nothing about the individual behind the job spec. You have no understanding where your application ends up whatsoever. And I think what you've created is a really beautiful interface. I think you've allowed people to assess realistically where they're at and what opportunities they should be matched to. And then you're giving them personal recommendations that are right at that point in time. And that's why I'm really excited about also the partnership, because it's really important. We care about sales confidence, helping people each stage of their career. And what you're allowing people to do is at that point when they're actively considering their next role or where they might be open to those opportunities, you are giving them a very personalized recommendation. And that works amazingly well for the candidate experience, but it's phenomenally powerful for the hiring managers, because while LinkedIn is a very, very successful talent platform, it has lots of limitations. And I think you're nailing that, which is fantastic.
One interesting thing is there is no good reason why a really good candidate who starts in an SDR role when they're in their early 20s, why they should not be earning 100,000 by the time they're 30. And I don't think there's any platform out there that can actually help them throughout their whole career at each stage. And that would be my goal, is that someone would sign up in their early 20s, straight after uni, and they get up to 100,000. I do appreciate the money is not the only thing,
Sure.
Training, the culture and the rest of it. But the reality is that once you get to a certain age and you've got responsibilities, is that money does become a factor. So I would, if we can get to the stage where we're helping great talent actually get up to over 100,000 by the time, a certain age, I think that would be fantastic.
And that's amazing. Let's be honest, we're talking about, and our listeners are very much commercially orientated and motivated individuals, right? This is about the sales profession, and absolutely within our industry, and we are in somewhat of a privileged position, to attain that level of earnings at that stage of your career is absolutely accessible, but you need the right places to look. And I think that you're demonstrating that. So, we've seen that you've been developing a lot of success in London and the UK. What's the growth projections for Candidate as a platform? Are you looking to new markets? Are you looking to expansion? If you can maybe share some of your ambition around the business that you're building.
Sure. So we'll be launching in Berlin and Paris in Q2 of next year. And this has really come from demand from our own clients. When you're trying to hire, as a UK company, when you're trying to hire into those markets, it's incredibly difficult. Language, employment law, all sorts of different things. So that's going to be a big move to us. We've got 6 French speakers in our team. I think there's a lot going on in Paris in the tech and SaaS community there.
Yeah.
Berlin is different, but I think there's some great VCs there, Point Nine, Cherry Ventures. So there's a lot going on in the SaaS space out there. I would love to launch in the US. I think that's not going to happen next year, but it's definitely on the plans.
Exciting. Thinking about the thousands of sales professionals that come to your platform every month, right, to identify their next career opportunity, what do you believe the best sales professionals demonstrate in terms of their competencies, their skills, behaviors?
I think some of it hasn't changed. You know, some of it, if you're really good at sales, I think you listen. I think the client is giving you all the answers. You ask great questions. You know, you could be a salesperson in the 70s and it's still now. I think what's shifted now is that instead of it being more kind of outbound sales, as in like cold calling, you've got amazing tools, you've got amazing marketing teams where leads are being brought into you.
Yeah.
So I think actually the ability to be consultative, listen, ask great questions, and then communicate extremely well. And communicate used to be, you know, on the phone, hard sales pitch. That's most of your customers know so much about you before that first phone call now.
Yeah.
So trying to tease out of them kind of where does this fit, at what price, what are the real problems. So I think it's communicating in different ways, and those different ways could be at events, social media, follow-ups. Someone said the other day at one of your events, it takes 6 follow-ups, and most salespeople are only doing 4 follow-ups. So I think, you know, you've got incredible tools out there, and I think the great sales teams now are really understanding that it's a pipeline and you have to communicate with them in so many different ways.
That's interesting. I mean, interestingly enough, we just had Enrique, the GM of G2, sharing those insights of how the buyer is much more informed.
Absolutely.
So as a seller, you need to have your expertise and understanding of your product, your industry, and your buyer's needs to really be able to solve their problem. Projecting to the future world, right? Thinking about where the future of sales is going and the part that Candidate is going to play in that. Where do you see, and how far into the future can you think where, in terms of the sales profession, may be going in your eyes?
I think the type of salesperson, I think we still have it in our heads that they are extroverts, they are very strong communicators. And I think those things are valid. But I think certainly if you look at SDRs now, the type of SDRs tend to be not academic, but they certainly can understand very technical sales and can actually communicate and do a lot. And they are, you know, fairly young. They are grads. So I think what's shifting is the shape of the skills that they need, or the types of skills they need. What those jobs look like, I think will keep changing. Customer success wasn't even a role 4 years ago. Yeah. So I think, you know, SaaS has brought about and is creating these kind of new roles. There are other things out there just with the types of technologies that are getting funded. This is going to create new roles. I don't know what those are, but I'm excited to find out in 5 years what a SaaS company looks like, because it's going to look very different.
No, interesting. And I think we generationally, kind of at least in the UK and Europe, somewhat behind where the Valley is in the US. There's so much opportunity to learn and develop, and you know we are starting to push the boundaries. It's interesting how these organisations are going to look for growth in the future. So I absolutely agree. It's a super exciting time.
That narrative is shifting, I think.
In what way?
Well, because I think we always were led by what was happening in the valley. And I think a lot of companies, even if you look there, a lot of companies are not choosing to start in the valley. The money is still there. There are incredible people there. But you've got pockets in the States, in LA, in New York, Chicago, Miami, Austin, Boulder. There is talent everywhere now.
Yeah.
And I think you look at what the US funds are doing, they're coming to Europe for their deals now. So I think this is shifting. And I think this idea that, we follow Silicon Valley, I think we're getting closer and closer. And I think there will be a moment in the next 5 years where I think some parity will be there.
That's interesting. I just want to pick up something you mentioned there about a SDR being a graduate. Something that I've become aware of, even when we're thinking about our own hiring at Sales Confidence, I'm very much open to the school leaver, the non-graduate. I'm just wondering, have you seen challenges in the SaaS industry for those individuals that do not have a higher education background? And do you have some recommendations on how they can navigate their career choices?
Well, I think it's a great point. I think some of this actually comes from our clients who say they want graduates. I think the reality is the skill set they need. You don't have to have gone to a university to actually do that. And I think the types of degrees are changing. What's amazing now is that I think you can get basically everything that you achieve academically. I think you can get that online, whether it's through White Hat, whether it's through Lambda in the States, whether it's through just going onto YouTube. A marketer now, if they took themselves away for 3 to 6 months and they did 8 hours a day, they could be experts in most fields in kind of online marketing. And they could probably do it for $0 or £0. So I think actually what you're seeing is, where this talent comes from, I think can be anywhere. And it doesn't have to come with a university degree. And I think smart founders are realizing that.
What would you, while our audience is predominantly the sales professional and the sales leader, I'm just thinking, with your experience as a founder, but also interacting with lots of founders, where do you think founders are missing a trick when it comes to building out their commercial sales organizations?
I think they're missing a trick because they have it in their head that they have to have A players. And they judge A players to have worked at a certain SaaS company or to have achieved certain things. And I think they may have had success in that previous context. And it's all context driven. They were successful because they had a great product, a great marketing team, the rest of it. Now, whether they can replicate that success in your context, I think doesn't always happen. And I think that's where you get disappointment. So for me, I would always try and hire someone who's going to step up into that role. And in order for them to be successful, you have to have great training. You have to give them that environment and a career trajectory where they keep stepping up. And I think the great SaaS companies now are finding talent from all sorts of places, but they're giving them a clear trajectory to keep being successful. Past experience it doesn't always replicate into future success, into your context.
I think that's fantastic advice. I think that level of flexibility and understanding that talent can come from a full spectrum of places, and the diversity in that talent is so important when building out successful teams. And it's interesting because you're an expert in this field. You are helping companies identify the right talent to build out commercial success. So I think to hear it from you is a good validation that they need to take a breath a little bit, take the pressure off a little bit, to expect that every person that walks into their business is going to be that A player. Because it's not clear.
You can understand why they do it though, because they've got a lot of targets each quarter to hire.
Yeah.
So they de-risk it through saying, well, this person is smart because they've got this background. This person must be good because they worked at you can pick any high growth startup. Yeah. So you can see how it happens. But I think, they have to look at their team and think that if you have a mixed team, lots of different backgrounds, lots of different cultures, languages. We have 14 different nationalities in our team, and we're 34.
Wow, fantastic. Thinking about now, bringing it back to yourself in the hot seat for a moment, you've already shared some of the challenges you've overcome in building businesses. Where have you been able to kind of, at times maybe where it wasn't so obvious to you or others around you, kind of give yourself a confidence boost to kind of help you get through that week, that next quarter? What has been kind of some approaches or thoughts that you've taken to kind of unlock that confidence to kind of put your best foot forward?
Well, look, I think there are some moments where you're not entirely sure, even yourself, if it's going to work. And I think, I think sometimes you just got to wake up and just get back in the office, because you will have those weeks where everything is pointing towards the fact that whatever you're doing at that time may not necessarily work out. The incredible things about startups is you will have moments that can happen quickly but can sometimes take ages. And I think sometimes what I think founders do is they try and think that they have to do this in a certain amount of time. So I will launch the product, then 6 months later I'll get Series A, then 12 months later Series B, and it just rarely works out like that.
Yeah, we've talked a lot behind the scenes in terms of sometimes when the unexpected happens, or you just need to put yourself back out there again, and then surprise, that deal comes off. That cash injection comes in. I think one of the things that I've learned going on this journey is you can't really be attached to the timeline or the outcome, because that's when it becomes difficult, when you start putting too much stress and pressure, that while with your resources and the best expectations, you've set the date, you've set the deadline, you need to be comfortable moving it if it's required, because this is a journey, and you can't always be aware of what's going to happen. It's going to be thrown at you.
I'm not sure who said this, but its great advice is, it's never as bad as you think, and it's never as good as you think. and that I think, that will go on my gravestone, I think.
What would your advice be to individuals that are trying to better understand themselves and understand how to give themselves a confidence boost? That might be to founders, or that might be to commercial or sales professionals. What would be your tips if someone came to you for that advice?
So I think there are 2 parts there. One is understanding themselves. So I think that means doing lots of different things in your life that I think take you into new places. Whether that might be going to Burning Man or doing a trade, things outside of work that actually challenge you.
Yeah. Burning Man's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I think. Look, I'm not advocating that as a way to do it, but I think it's an experience.
Absolutely.
In terms of getting confidence, I think you get confidence by deeply thinking and deeply researching into what you're trying to do. So if you're an online marketer and you're, you've been doing it for a couple of years, the question I always ask them is, what are you reading? What blogs are you reading? And when I find candidates can't really take me deeply into what they're thinking about, that concerns me, because I really want to understand that they are trying to be subject matter experts. This is all shifting so fast, sales, marketing, startups, all the rest of it. So all the knowledge is online. It's free. It's there for you. Go and challenge yourself. That, I think, where you see people speaking with confidence, it's because they deeply understand what they do. That would be my take on it.
That's great advice. Thinking about how you manage your own well-being and your own health. You are managing lots of responsibilities, making lots of decisions, juggling lots of pressures. How do you give yourself a break, or how do you manage your own well-being?
I'm not very good at this part. Okay. I'm not very good at this part. I'm totally caught up in the work and the emotion of it. So this is a really challenging one that I'm still working on. But the only way I can do it when things get too much is I just go and work from home, because that's how I can create some space for myself, but it's very, very challenging. And I think the hardest moment for all founders is when they're raising money, and especially at seed and Series A, because they don't have a team around them. They don't have a CFO. They don't have a data analyst, most part. And then they have this new job, which is now raising money. And every investor they go to asks them for more data and for more information. And they're trying to run the company. And the investors are saying, well, how are things going at the moment? And you're sitting there thinking, well, it'd be going a lot better if I could actually run the company. So look, I think it's very challenging. And yes, I think exercise, meditation. The advice I gave someone the other day is don't drink when you're raising money over that 3 months, because it is incredibly stressful. So anything you can do, sleep, exercise, meditation, anything at all. And I think I would just remind yourself that, raising money takes 3 to 6 months, and don't get caught up in a great meeting or a bad meeting.
Great advice. It's been fascinating to hear aspects of your journey, what you've been building at Kandidate to add value to the profession. It's clear that everybody can identify future career opportunities within SaaS, within your platform, which is I think it's incredible that you've created that value in the marketplace. And on the reverse, the opportunity for hiring managers to make those matches at the right time. We talk a lot about accelerating go-to-market, accelerating growth. Getting talent in at the right time is absolutely critical. It's the fundamental.
It's the difference between success and failure. And
Without
I
a
think
doubt.
Notion Capital, actually, they came out with something that 80% of all funding is for people. So that's where the money's going to. So I think finding those critical people, junior, mid, senior, it's the difference between success and failure.
Amazing. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, look, I think it's fascinating what's going on in SaaS in Europe at the moment. And I think, what you're shining a light on, I think, is that sales is an incredibly valuable career. And I think I've always been, I'm not a technical founder, I'm a salesman.
Yeah.
And I think actually making it a profession, like in the States. So in the States, if you say that you work in real estate, people smile and they say, wow, that's great. Here, it's not the same. So I think actually shining a light on it as you're doing and saying, look, this is a great career. And I think the environment that SaaS companies and or VC-backed SaaS companies are providing, incredible offices, incredible opportunity to learn and earn money, that's a great career. And I don't think that was around when I was straight out of uni.
Amazing. Well, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, James.
I'm really grateful for your support with our partnership. For me, every single individual needs to put themselves on Kandidate. We're looking forward to doing more in 2020. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks a lot.
Good man.
Cheers.